So, welcome to the first episode of Beyond the Protocol Clinical Work Life Insights. I'm Dan Schell, the Chief Editor of Clinical Leader, and this is a multi part series that was the brainchild of my co host, Sandra Warren. Now, before Sandra tells us the origins of this idea, I should also say that our first guest in this series is Katie Dunn, who is not a recruiter, even though a lot of people think she is, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the difference between. What do I call you, Katie? Go ahead, tell
Oh,
me.
I do work in talent acquisition.
Talent acquisition.
I'm just not in the clinical research industry actually recruiting for the roles that are posted.
Got it.
So I'll dive into that a little bit more.
We will. Okay, perfect. So, Sandra, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit how we got here and why.
All right. Well, thank you, Dan. I've been in the industry for about 10 years. To make it short and sweet, I reached out to Dan. I was trying to do informational interviews, just networking, and I introduced myself to Dan, and I said, "Hey, Dan, can I network with you?" We started talking. One thing led to another, and then I said, would it be crazy? Could maybe we start something up where I could maybe interview you, you could interview me, and we could, broadcast it,
Yeah.
And he goes, "That's a great idea." So here we are.
Tell me about your 10 years of experience.
My 10 years experience. Well, it's been different. This industry definitely keeps you
On your toes?
on your toes. They keep using the word, yes. And this last 2.5 years, yes, 2.5 years, has been the toughest, the most worst years I've ever experienced in our industry. And it's not just for job seekers. It's also been for, hiring managers, companies themselves. And so when a recruiter recently just told me, what happens to me affects her because, they get a little cut from us. I realized, wow, this is really, real. Not that I didn't think before, but it was just a reminder how, it's just not just an individual struggle. It affects many people in all sort of capacity.
Yeah.
And so, when it stalls, clinical research, it slows down everybody and ultimately affects patients, and that's who really needs it the most.
Right. One of the things that interested me about this whole concept was when you and I first talked and you said, "Hey, I've been laid off for a while and I've been going through so many different interviews." And, you had worked in project management and startup, right? And
Correct.
yeah. And, when I looked at your resume, I was like, okay, well, this person has a lot of experience and she's having a difficult time in the industry. Katie's probably smiling to herself thinking, I hear this every single day. And there are hundreds of people that are. And so that's what kind of led us here, right? I mean, you said, hey, I'm really struggling with this, and there must be other people out there that are going through the same thing. But you have had so many personal interactions with recruiters, talent acquisition, whatever. And so that's why we wanted to start this whole series and talk to people like you, Sandra, talk to people like you, Katie, on both ends of the spectrum and see, is there a way maybe we can help people? If at least we can let people know that you're not going through this alone, which I'm sure that they all know. Katie, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. So I actually got into clinical research in 2014. I came on board with a site that's local to me, and I was very fortunate to. I was just an admin assistant, and I shouldn't say just. I was an admin assistant.
Good. Yeah.
Jack of all trades. But in that role, I was really able to see the inner workings of the site at a corporate level. So I was able to travel around to the clinics and see how the clinics functioned. But I was also lucky enough to be able to sit in and learn from our leadership team about the business and about their choices that they needed to make. And then I started working a little bit with Wake Forest University, which is also local to me. And that led me into working with early careers and graduates from Wake Forest, which then led me into talent acquisition and human resources.
Okay.
And my career just kind of started to bloom, and it was all within a site network. I then was exposed to CROs. I went back to the site network. And then in 2023, I had a large family shift. So it was completely in my personal life. And I needed to step away from my job at that point in time. So I then became a job seeker and I started seeing the other side of it. Now, being in human resources, it's a little bit different because I can hop industries, right? Like I'm not in one specific industry.
Right.
But during my time out of work, I really started to see the struggles of the folks in the industry. I want to say I'd seen layoffs. I'm not going to name names. I saw several layoffs, massive layoffs of like 600 to 800 people. And the banners going up and people just being out of work. Like Sandra said, I mean, you're out of work for 8 months, 9 months, and then all of a sudden it turns into 2 years and you don't know what happened. So I just got this idea one day. I was sitting at my kitchen table and I was like, well, I know things. Maybe I should share the things that I know.
That's
Share love. Share the love.
Yeah, exactly. That there's no harm in just putting information out there. So I started building lists of actual entry level roles because for some reason in the research industry, entry level is not entry level. It is the most frustrating thing. So I started building that and it just started snowballing. And now I just share roles and I try to network with people and try to bring things to like my home feed on LinkedIn so that other people can see it. I have connected with a lot of smaller sites. I've connected with a lot of smaller CROs and hiring managers. So anything I see, I just try to share it out. And fortunately, I've gotten very positive feedback from doing that. And it has brought me a lot of joy just being able to support other people in this very small way. In my opinion, I'm just sharing things, right? So yeah, that was kind of my career in a nutshell. I do still work in human resources. I'm not within the research industry right now. But I'm still, as you can see, I'm still plugged in. I still see a lot of things and I try to stay very connected.
It's funny how every time I talk to somebody in clinical research, their answer to how they got involved is by accident. It was, I didn't intend to go into this. Sandra, how did you get involved in clinical research so long ago?
Well, I'm going to be the oddball here. I lost my mom when she was 46. I was 23.
Oh.
So this is my why, is Simon, quoting Simon Sinek. My why, that's my passion. I intentionally thought this out. So I was trying to get in clinical research. My mom, they say doctors are the worst patients. Well, my mother was a nurse and I was, trying to help her and help others so they wouldn't have to go through the ordeal because she, like I said, fought it for like 10 years and no one could have to do that. And but
you're right. Yeah, you were different than most people. You didn't fall right into it then.
No, I did not.
How did you come across Katie?
She posted something on LinkedIn. I'm like, hey, who's this chick? And, and again, I always say you can't be shy when looking for a job. So I said, hi, Katie, and kind of gave my little elevator speech. She welcomed me, in her network. And we talked a couple times on the phone. And fortunately, she didn't help me. But, I'm appreciative what she did offer me. And it's always stayed with me. And that's why I thought, when Dane and I started talking, I thought, what better person than Katie? Because I've always thought highly of you, Katie, and I thought, you give her, well, you're very passionate and, so many people are so negative. And so I always appreciated that.
Well, it's funny because, I still consider myself the new guy. I've only been focused on clinical trials for a year and a half from an editor standpoint. And, Katie, you are one that kind of popped out on my LinkedIn feed, and not just because of what you were writing, but how you were writing it. And, you're giving these weekly updates and things like that. And so when Sandra contacted me, I was like, oh, I know who Katie is. Yeah. And Sandra, you had at that point, I think you said you had talked to lots of different, just use the term recruiters. And the premise of this whole concept was, everywhere we look, everywhere we see, especially on things like Reddit or whatever, everybody's being very negative because there are so many of these layoffs, the big ones like Katie was just talking about. But then there are so many of these posts that I see from these brand new people. Like you mentioned Wake Forest, Katie, like folks are specifically trying to get into this industry from an education standpoint. And they're being hit with a brick wall, I think, in many cases. Is that the case for both of you?
That's where I got actually started in clinical research. I was in the academia setting.
Oh.
And I was a clinical research coordinator. That's for most people, because that's about entry level as you can get, when you start in this industry. So I was a clinical research coordinator, and I guess you could say just kind of blossomed. And I tried to stay in it as long as I, can. And I'm hoping to continue, but it's not looking very good.
Katie, how often do you hear that people are potentially going to leave the industry because they can't find a job?
Unfortunately, I've seen it a lot. It's very difficult. So in so many different levels, it's difficult to kind of break through the brick wall that you were referring to. At an academic level, going off of what Sandra said, if you start off in academic research, you have to break through the brick wall to get into the industry research. If you are in a clinical site within the industry, then you have to break through the brick wall to get into the CRO.
Yeah.
It's kind of nonstop. It's very difficult. And I have not, even though I've spoken with so many hiring managers and you try to understand exactly what they're looking for in their candidates, the desire is always, well, I need this, and this experience, rather than, oh, well, that person has this skill that'll transfer here. They can absolutely learn this. So it's hard at every level to bump up and get to the next place.
Yeah.
And it's very unfortunate because there are so many incredibly talented people. I was looking at somebody's resume not long ago, and I believe they recently came to the U.S. and they're a foreign medical grad. This person was literally a physician, a surgeon in another country, and they can't even get an assistant level position, which absolutely makes no sense to me.
No.
So it's heartbreaking and it's very difficult. And I do feel like 9 times out of 10, it's about who do you know. It's not necessarily what your experience is.
Right.
It's who you know at what company, and who will speak positively of you, and vouch for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is that.
Go on.
Go ahead.
Well, I can say even with my own background, I've worked in oncology, which is, neurology, rare diseases, ultra rare diseases, infectious diseases. But I've seen how the market slowed down when, people can't even get in any therapeutic area. And it's been the most daunting thing I've ever experienced. And when things slow down, the patient population, and it affects them, and then urgent timelines, and then where do we go? It's just been.
Sandra, what are some of the experiences, and I know you and I touched upon this in some of our previous conversations, but some of your experiences that you've gone through, either dealing with hiring managers, recruiters. Focus on recruiters for a minute. And I hate to use that. Am I using the right term, Katie? Is that okay to?
It is. So a recruiter and a talent acquisition professional are two different things. Whenever I think about a recruiter, typically it's going to be like a high volume. They've got to place people in a very fast manner. A lot of times recruiters work for agencies, but sometimes you also have in-house company recruiters. But talent acquisition, they are viewed as almost like consultants to the hiring managers. They really help guide them through the process and be supposed to be
Right,
um,
right.
a partner through the process. So like a talent acquisition specialist, for example, let's just say, for example, at Icon, you might have 20 roles that you need to fill, or maybe 15 roles on a monthly basis. And that's high. That would be a high number, in my opinion. Whereas an agency recruiter, they're probably going to have 30 or 40, maybe more positions that they are trying to fill.
Okay.
So you're still doing a lot of the same things, but it's slightly different.
Okay. And Sandra, so if you had more positive stories to tell us, we would not be doing this podcast today or this webinar today.
Well, maybe it's a blessing in disguise. I mean,
That's right.
you know,
Tell us about, and people always want to hear this, like, what are some of the worst case scenarios that you've gone through? I mean, I always hear about ghosting situations. I hear about, I was in 5 different interviews and then, I never was heard from again. Whoever, whether it's a talent acquisition or a recruiter, give me some of your experiences.
not to sound negative, but either I'm second or yes, something got frozen, or, I just get the typical email, and I'm lucky sometimes I even get emails, to say thanks, but no thanks. So, we found somebody else, or I forgot that, thing they share, but, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I can only surmise that, obviously it wasn't me. So I just move on, just say next. I just don't take it personally. I just can't take it personally. So just
Sure. Well, that's a good attitude to have. I imagine a lot of other people do take it very personally, and it's hard not to.
Well, right.
That's right. Right.
Well, in the hiring freezes, like I said, again, it affects the mergers. And, it also just not talking about employment numbers. We're talking about delayed trials, patient enrollment, missed opportunities, medical breakthroughs. I mean, it's all this stuff. I mean, like that, it's a trickle down theory, and I don't think they realize how much it affects. And it's not a political thing, and I don't want to get into politics, but I'm just saying it's been very brutal, I guess I'm trying to say.
Sure.
So, Katie, I got a question for you then. What affects job seekers when, I guess, recruiters feel the slowdown?
When do recruiters feel the slowdown?
Yes. Or maybe it's just a talent acquisition.
A lot of times we will hear about it the same day that the candidate hears about it, or the day before. A lot of times we don't know it's coming either. But other times we'll be told, okay, keep these people warm. Make sure like they know we're still interested in them and that the role is open, but we need to pause for a minute. And then unfortunately, after a few weeks, it'll still close. And I've seen that the most, just like with what you just said, whenever trials close or trials don't even get started. I think whenever COVID started to kind of decline a little bit and things started to stabilize a little bit, I saw it a lot then. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times you don't know that it's coming. Yeah.
What advice would you give for those that had hit the wall? Because I'm trying not to hit the wall. Trust me, I got a little bruised here. But I mean, what would you suggest? What advice would you give Nate?
Well, I think you are a prime example of somebody who is not giving up. You are a good example of somebody who continues to try to break through the barriers that are set in front of you. Things like you said earlier, things have not been easy. And unfortunately, there's a massive group of people right now who they just can't find anything. And the best thing that I can say is you cannot give up on yourself. Number one, if you have to pay the bills, yes, go to J. Crew and get like a retail job to make sure that you have your bills covered. Like, don't ever put yourself in a position where your life is declining because you need a clinical research job. You can have, a job that is 30 hours a week to help you pay the bills, but you're still on the clinical research grind looking for positions. That does not mean you have to give up on your passion.
Update you for sure that because I'll be honest with you, I have taken a retail job. I mean, I didn't want to. I consider myself a pretty frugal person. I try to save my money as much as I could, but after a while, it's like I gotta get something. I gotta get something, and
well, and I think this is more of a reflection on myself. I don't want to push this on somebody else, but assuming other people feel this way too, it's a punch to the gut to be like, oh, okay, no, I have to go do something else just to make money so I can pay my bills. Like I really can't find a job.
it makes you very humble. If nothing else, it makes you very humble.
Yes. And then I think networking is a massive part of this as well, which again, you are a really good example of. I constantly see you commenting on things. Obviously, Dan and I are examples of people that you've networked with and connected with. And those are the best things that job seekers can do right now. Don't give up and network. Genuinely network. Don't network to just brag about yourself, but network to learn about people, network to learn about the industry. And
I call them informational interviews.
Yes. And as you are genuine with other people, something will open up. And I know you're waiting. I know. So I have all the faith in the world, and it's easy for me to say this, but I have all the faith in the world. You're going to find something fantastic. And so will a bunch of other people looking for jobs. You just haven't found the right thing yet. But it's being in the thick of it is so mentally draining and difficult. It is very much so a thing where you have to be tenacious. You have to continue to push forward, even though you really don't want to.
Sure. You you post a list every week. Like you said, you've been compiling all of those lists. And do people ask you, hey, where can I see that information? Or is it just you just being connected and you're finding those job postings?
So sometimes, so a lot of people come to me thinking that I'm hiring for those positions. Right. Number one.
Every time I see where you say, I'm not the hiring manager, someone says, I'm interested. And you're like, I'm not the hiring manager.
Well, and I think like the I'm interested thing is kind of twofold. Because at first I was like, why are they saying that?
Yeah.
Why are they like, I'm glad, I'm thrilled that you're interested, but why are you telling me? But then I realized, I think a lot of people comment I'm interested and then they still go apply. So like they're doing both.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure. It's blatantly an assumption. I think I read it somewhere, honestly. So I just kind of took the stance of this is as innocent as possible. Just make sure you go apply. Okay.
Sure.
Like
I'll tell you, the outsider looking in, it seemed because, that's what, again, gravitated me towards you is because I was like, oh, I didn't look at your title, to be honest with you, because I saw these positions. I'm like, oh, she must be a recruiter or talent acquisition, whatever, So I just, started like, hey, who's this Katie?
Yeah.
Well, and I started following you. And again, because people are desperate. People want that I call human touch. And I think that's one thing that coveted left us is we don't have that human touch anymore. And it's unfortunate. But, you're one of the people that we can reach out to and say, I might not know whatever, person at Icon using, since she used Icon, I'll reach out to Katie. Maybe hopefully she knows or somebody, we want that, human connection and we just don't get that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say that is one area, my messages, that is an area of lack for me. I don't respond well. I'll try to respond to 4 or 5 people and then I'm like, okay, I don't have time to do anymore.
Right.
So I hate that. But Dan, I keep talking over you. I'm sorry.
No. It just reminded me when Sandra said about that human touch thing, and I've been reading so much on these Reddit, posts about people doing the video interviews and, or what's it called? Like where you have to interview yourself or you have to answer a bunch of questions. You're not even dealing with a human at this point. What are those called?
Virtual, or what do they call it?
I name for it.
So pre-COVID, that's my timestamp. Post COVID.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, the company that I was working with, we did video screenings.
Okay.
So instead of, you would still speak with a recruiter like over email, but we would then send you a link to go and video yourself answering 10 questions or however many questions. I don't know if that company still does that, but yes, that was a way to help recruiters be more efficient with their time.
Okay.
We could literally just go watch this 10-minute interview, figure out if the person was qualified, and move on.
Yep.
I don't know. The companies that I have worked with are not doing that anymore. There might still be companies doing that, but I will say, with a lot of the video aspects and the social media aspects and the different posts that you'll see of people doing rather unique things, I really think it has everything to do with standing out. These people are taking a chance and they're doing something very different to draw attention to themselves. And you would have people that love it, and you would have people that absolutely don't love it.
Sure.
And you're going to, if you send it to 5 people, hopefully one of them would love it.
Yep.
Right.
I want to share a story. I think I shared it with you, Tim. I know I didn't share it with you, Katie. Basically, at my last position, they asked me to train the CRA, Clinical Research Associate. I said, sure, no problem. So as I'm showing him the ropes, so to speak, he whispers in my ear and he goes, what's a 1572? I said, a what? And he said, a 1572. I said, there's not such a thing. And he goes, yeah, it's on my computer, it's on my monitor. I'm like, no, there's not. And he goes, let's go by your monitor. And so now we're at his monitor, and now he's pointing 1572. I said, no, sir, that is a 1572. You're a CRA. If anyone should know this, you should. That was a little something. Then he asked me, he said, what's the IND? I'm like, you what? What is it? What did you just say? And he said, what's the IND? I'm like, oh my God, first, this is Clinical Research 101. And you're a CRA, you're supposed to be above me,
Yeah.
You will not know what a 1572 is, and you do not know what an IND. So I said that I'd get out loud, and so the manager and the director pulled him aside, and they let him go. And as they're walking out the door, he gives me this ugly look. I'm like, dude, you cannot give me this ugly look. You could kill life if you don't know what you're doing. But that happens over and over again. I have heard so many stories from recruiters saying, oh yeah, we say, for example, interviewed Katie, and then out comes Dan, in the job, I'm like, how do they get away with that? How do they? Only thing I digress. I don't mean to get into.
Yeah, it might be that whole who you know type of thing sometimes in those situations. Then it comes back to bite them in the butt later. And you're right, it is a safety issue. We are dealing with human beings here when it comes down to it, whatever your role is, whether you're the CTA at the administration at the reception desk, or you're the CRA that's coming on site. And obviously there's a heck of a lot more safety issues there that could impact humans, and you and I have talked a little bit about that, not losing sight of that in all these roles. But have you been through any of these types of virtual interviews or any of the what we just called the video interview where you have to interview yourself? Not interview yourself, answer a few questions.
Well, speaking of Icon asked me, but to do this, and I'll be honest with you, I was a little intimidated, because I didn't know what to expect. So I turned it down because I didn't know what to expect, because they wouldn't give me like what kind of questions I should expect, because I would try to get what kind of questions they would ask, or what title, or whatever, and they just weren't forthcoming. So
Yeah, Katie, are there typical knockout questions that there are that, you can establish early on to see if someone's a fit? I mean, if you don't know, if you don't know what a 1572 is, that's a pretty good indication that you're not fit for a CRA position. But
That would be a good one. That would be
yeah,
a good one.
yeah,
Yes. So on the front end, whenever you have candidates apply, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes there will be knockout questions. For example, a good one, like if you needed to be on site in Cincinnati, for example, a knockout question would be, okay, can you reasonably commute to the office in Cincinnati? Yes or no. If the person says no, they're going to be automatically declined because they could not be on site. Oftentimes knockout questions are going to be very very much so on the front end, like an on-site question or maybe a salary question to make sure that you fit within the salary range. But whenever you get into the interview stage, you would not. So a knockout question typically is within the applicant tracking system.
yeah.
It's within like the software system where you're putting your resume in. But recruiters, there would absolutely be specific questions that we're looking out for, very specific verbiage, like a 1572, so that if somebody knows what they're talking about or not. The person who was hired as a CRA, Sandra, I have no idea what kind of schmoozing they did in their interview.
I don't
They
either.
were apparently very good at talking.
They didn't, honestly, they let their guard down with me, and
Well, and that's the thing. Once somebody gets into a role, you'll see it. You'll know if they're a good fit or not. But yeah, there's always going to be a specific set of questions. Like if it's a CRC, if the requirement is, okay, you need to be able to perform phlebotomy. Phlebotomy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What is the matter with me?
We gotcha. You need to be able to take blood.
Right. Thank you. And if you say, okay, do you prefer a butterfly needle or, do you prefer butterfly? And they don't even know what you're talking about. Okay, you might know a little bit about drawing blood, but you don't know anything about the needles that you have to use to draw blood. I actually had a hiring manager tell me one time, ask them about the needles. And then that helped us weed people out very quickly.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Are there specific, as you get into those later stages, obviously there are some specific additional knockout questions I imagine that they're giving you. Gotcha. And so as an applicant, you should be thinking ahead to what those things are. If I'm applying for a CRA position, I should at least understand what a CRA is,
and had those keywords. So you need to have those keywords. Also, it's very important to have keywords,
Yeah.
I call it the applicant trashing system. Because, you just never,
Yeah.
because, a lot of times, you don't know why you got, not picked or whatever. And it's just the nature of the beat. So that's why, just like I said, I just go in,
Well, that's a good point too about the feedback that, applicants often don't get. And I know a lot of people complain about that, and not just in clinical trials. I mean, a lot of people apply for all sorts of jobs and then they get no feedback from how is that, Katie? Is it just a matter of recruiters are super overwhelmed or talent acquisition or HR, and they don't have time to get back to hundreds of clients? Or is that in your world viewed as, yeah, that's just common courtesy? You should at least get back to them and explain them. Or I don't know, you tell me.
So typically, and this is only speaking from my experience. I don't want to speak for all recruiters. Feedback will be provided, number one, if the hiring manager provides it, or if I actually have a valuable something to add.
Yep.
If the hiring manager just tells me no and they don't give me reasoning, I don't know either.
Yeah.
I can't help. But a lot of times, let's say you have 100 candidates that have applied to a role and you end up phone screening 4 of them, and the other 96, they're just not going to get feedback. It might be a timing game. legitimately the first 4 people that the recruiter looked at were qualified. So she talked to them and then they moved forward. That's nobody's fault. That's just the nature of the beast. But typically feedback will only come later in the process. Now, if you have had a full out interview, if you've had 2 or 3 interviews and you get cut loose with no feedback, that sucks.
Right.
Because it's invaluable for you to know exactly what it was. And unfortunately, I think in a lot of those situations, it's not necessarily something drastic that you did. It just played out that way. Like the hiring manager might, I don't know, they might have thought the other person was super funny, so they just wanted them around.
Sure. Right. Yeah, and they're not going to give you that kind of feedback.
I mean, you can just, drive yourself crazy. And that's why I just don't.
I'm pretty sure you said this earlier in the very beginning, whenever we started talking, you said that you try not to take it personally.
Right.
And that, I think, is a vital thing for anybody in the job hunt to keep very close to their chest. And I'd probably need to look in the mirror and say the same thing. You cannot take it personally because it has nothing to do with you as a human being.
Right, right.
A lot of times it's just the luck of the draw.
Yep. Yeah. And that's great as far as managing the expectations, the emotional expectations of the applicants is super important. Like especially like I talk to my kids, who are in their 20s, and when they were applying for jobs, I say, hey, listen, you're not going to get feedback. You're not going to get a response every single time. Expect that. Don't be so upset. Don't be down in the dumps because of it, And I think these days, especially for the new grads coming out, that's important information to know.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I was going to say, and, I understand you guys are overwhelmed. I get it. I understand, but, it just takes 5 seconds to say, hey, Sandra, thanks, but no thanks. That way you have closure, I have closure, But what signals should we look for that indicate that the market is turning around? Do you think it's turning around? I feel like it's slowly, because this time last year, I'm getting more interviews. Now, I haven't gotten the jobs yet still, but I am getting more interviews.
So I will say, I want to respond to the first part of your statement first.
Okay.
Within the system, any recruiter should be, whenever they decline your resume, they should be sending out a decline message. It should come to your email and it should say exactly what you just said. Thank you so much for applying. Thank you for your interest. Please keep an eye out for future opportunities. We have already filled the role. It should be a very short and sweet message of just, you are valued. However, like, we've already filled it. And I can't tell you why that wouldn't happen. Because in the system that I work with, I can literally schedule, okay, have this sent out 2 days from now. Let them know. So I would like to think recruiters are doing that, but like you said, it's obviously not happening every time. But that's part of the system. It should be sending out decline emails. I feel like with now going to the second part of your statement, I feel like the industry is doing well. I do see a consistent amount of new postings. I'm seeing a very consistent amount of evergreen postings recently too. And an evergreen, if you have not heard this term before, it's essentially a job post that a company will just use repeatedly instead of opening up a brand new job like on LinkedIn or Indeed. So on LinkedIn, whenever you see, there are very specific companies I've seen this with lately. If you see, okay, reposted 3 days ago, over 100 applicants. And then 12 days later, you see another reposted 1 day ago and it still has over 100 applicants. That's probably an evergreen role where they just want to keep pipelining people. They just want anybody interested to come and apply there. And then the recruiters will then go through all of those applications. I have worked in evergreens before. I've worked in evergreens at a CRO where we would literally just go in and pluck people out if they were qualified. But it just helps you to not have to go through the approval process again. It takes away some of the administrative work that has to happen behind the scenes. So I've been seeing a lot of those lately. I've been seeing a good consistent amount of jobs opening. I don't know if I have actually seen a shift yet. I recently read about the likelihood of vaccine research changing a little bit. So I've been kind of waiting on pins and needles to see how that impacts the industry. But right now it feels slow and steady. I've not seen anything negative happen thus far.
Yeah, we're still in a period of a lot of layoffs, right? A lot of, you still see this. There's still a lot of people that are out there, but that's a good point. Like, it's hard to predict based on one thing or another. Like Sandra, you had said, I'm not going to get political, but there are political implications. There are, like you just said, Katie, maybe vaccine research is going to see some type of uptick or downgrade. Who knows, and all those things impact how many jobs there are out there, right? Whether a drug succeeds or not, whether a company decides, oh, you know what, we're going to insource rather than outsource, and then of course there's mergers and acquisitions. So there's so many different variables that affect all of this. I'm kind of wrapping up this conversation because I thought that was a great way to end it, as far as why. We don't know why, and that's probably not even something that someone like Sandra is sitting there. Yeah, you're probably frustrated over why is this happening in the industry, but more importantly, what can you do? What can you keep doing? And like Katie had said, like, you just keep on keeping on, I guess. You just keep plugging away. You both brought up really good points about networking and the importance of it, and Sandra's doing the right thing, reaching out to all sorts of different people. And I guess there's probably also, Katie, an underlying, and don't be a nag, understand, at some point they just can't do anything for you, but keep yourself on their radar, right? I mean, is that a good way to sum it up?
Yes, absolutely. I think making genuine connections with people and just giving them like a light knock on the door. I'm still open for business. If and when you have an opening, that's the best thing that you can do. Just keep yourself open. And oh my gosh, use the banner on LinkedIn.
Oh, but you got that up. I mentioned that to Dan earlier. Because do you remember when it first came on? There was such a stigma where people were saying that it makes you look desperate. And I'm telling that Dan, and he gave me this weird look just now. And he's like, "What?" And
maybe that in specific industries, I think it would be absolutely absurd for a recruiter to bypass somebody who is open to work, who could literally start next week when they have a trial that's coming on.
Exactly. That's my whole point. I mean, at least, they're active. They're not passive, candidates. And that's why I don't know. I mean, I find everything
definitely use it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm using it.
All right. There's your takeaway, folks. Use the open to work. Follow people like Katie. Follow people like Sandra. And reach out and make those connections that are out there. So, I think this was a good conversation. I appreciate you both being with us today. And Sandra, this was your idea. I'm sitting here thanking you for coming up with a really good idea. So we're going to do more of these. You're going to hear more stories from Sandra. You're going to hear more stories from people like Katie out there. So keep watching for more episodes to drop. And thank you both again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie.